Today, Liss and I are going to explore something that possibly, maybe, might totally change how you relate to life. We're going to explore the idea that emotions aren't random. They are actually born from thought.
Hi, and welcome to Light for Life. If you are returning to our channel, thank you. We value and appreciate you. If you are new here, you are most welcome. I am Liss. I'm a science of mind practitioner and a teacher of various healing modalities applicable to all aspects of the self and this life.
And I am Lori. I am a holistic wellness researcher and educator. Welcome to Connections with Liss and Lori. Isn't that an interesting point to ponder? And I think people kind of might do that whole dog, huh? Because emotions can feel automatic, right? They can feel completely natural to us, and it's just something that happens automatically, and we don't have any control over it. But the truth is that they do arise from thought, and then those thoughts will trigger a response throughout the physical body. It's actually a hormonal thing. It's a neurotransmitter thing. What we experience as emotion can actually be a chemical process in our body. They don't just pop up randomly. So before I get going on my soapbox, because I could probably take this and run for a couple of hours here, I'm going to let Liz get a breath in and we'll take it from there.
Honey, I'm not sure if that's a good idea because we tend to go on different tracks. And my track would be that there literally is no distinction between a thought and an emotion. We speak about them as though they are two different things, but they're not. Emotions are thoughts. In order for me to explain that, I just need to take us back to what we so often come back to, which is frequency.
Yeah.
And resonant frequency. And essentially, the composite of our being creates our state of being, which gives us a certain resonant frequency. And all sorts of thoughts and emotions exist within that frequency band. So whatever the frequency might be, if that is our resonant frequency, then we are going to connect to the thoughts that exist within that resonant frequency band. And if we are being contemplative, very mental, judging, then we will receive those resonant frequencies as thoughts, seemingly thoughts that we cannot control. If, however, we are very emotional and we're coming from our heart space, then we will receive those resonant frequencies as emotions. But either way, there are resonant frequencies in the plane of mind. They are thoughts. The emotion arises as a result of the thought, but sometimes we think we feel the emotion first because we're coming from our heart space. And then we think we're thinking about the emotion afterwards. But it's all happening simultaneous in that resonant frequency band. It just depends on where our current setting is, whether we're coming from our hearts or coming from our minds.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And let's start with some examples to be relatable to people who might be listening. What might some examples be? Your thought might be, it's not safe, or I'm not safe, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not lovable, or I'm not worthy. You know, a lot of the thoughts that people might not understand that they have running around in the background, but most of the time, most people do have at least some degree of I'm not worthy, I don't deserve this, I'm not safe, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough. So let's bring it down into a concrete, usable frequency that somebody might be able to relate to.
Well, the I am not safe. Let's elaborate on that because I think that's an easy one. Some of us might not resonate with the thought that is quite that distinct as I am not safe. I
Yeah.
think we think that every now and then. But the underlying feeling and question of, am I safe,
Mm-hmm.
is something I think that particularly as women, we
Yes.
resonate with a lot.
Yes.
Very often the thought of, am I safe with this person, in this place, in this situation? Am I safe? Resonates a lot. We think that thought a lot. And so we feel the corresponding emotion a lot too, which is some form of vigilance,
Yeah.
hyper-awareness, perhaps even some anxiety. Why do women suffer from that, generally speaking, more than men do? I think moments
Interesting.
of outright fear, where we're just terrified, are few and far between. When we're thinking that thought of, I am not safe, that's definitely a moment, and we notice it when that happens. But the silent hum of, am I safe, that just plays in the background. And therefore, it's corresponding anxiety, or perhaps just stress and worry.
Yeah.
Do we connect that emotional state of being to the thought that's running? And it would be irresponsible, particularly in this world, to never have the thought of, am I safe? For a lot of us, we have to go through life, and that's one of the questions we have to consider. Do I have my phone? Have I got my keys? Am I safe? They kind of go together in the world that we live in, right? But how much am I allowing myself to resonate in that place
Right.
of what if I'm not safe? And do I have to be afraid? And what might happen? And what am I worried about? And then that whole train starts jugging.
Yeah, it can definitely be a freight train that leaves the station full speed ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. I think it all begins with awareness of what we're thinking, right? If we can become the observer of thought, then we can better understand what we are connecting with within ourselves. What frequency are we connecting with that is going to generate our outcomes, generate our experience, generate our day?
And by contrast, an example that's almost a flip side of that. Um, I've been going personally through a very stressful time the last few days. That's not negative, that's just my current reality. I'm going through a very, very stressful time. And it's almost impossible at the moment to not only acknowledge that reality, but not to enter into that feeling of stress. It's almost impossible. I am managing it. I'm trusting, I'm choosing my thoughts, but nonetheless, I am going through a very stressful time right now. That is just my reality.
Yeah.
However, if I don't indulge it, if I don't just allow myself to now be in a state where I'm thinking, oh, I'm so stressed and this is so stressful and oh, it's so terrible, and work up even more of that stress, and correspondingly, I'm not resistant to it either. I'm just allowing it. Here's the amazing part. If I'm not thinking that way, I can actually consciously choose to be stressed and then not be stressed. So, for example, if I were to sit here now and take a couple of really deep breaths, center myself in my heart, and then say, okay, stress, okay, come. You're welcome. Come. No stress comes. In fact, a wave of peace goes. Quite mind-blowingly. Why? Because I'm not offering resistance to the stress. I'm
Mm,
accepting that right now I am in a stressful reality and it's okay. I'm just allowing it. So my resonant frequency is that of surrender, not of stress.
Well, that's really beautiful. And I'm going to go ahead and use myself as an example too. Um, for a couple of days last week, I was really angry. And I know anger is the bodyguard, right? But no matter what I did, no matter what I was thinking, I just okay, anger. Let's talk. And for me, it was kind of the opposite. It was more anger and more anger and more anger and more anger. And I was like, all right, I'm not doing something right here.
Well, sometimes we have to actually give acknowledgement to past anger that we've suppressed. Sometimes that needs some oxygen, sometimes that needs some airing. And in particular, because I know the situation you're referring to, so I will be careful with my words here. But when it is in relation to a specific thing that we have repeatedly allowed, but allowed with resistance, allowed with a rejection in ourselves,
Yeah,
allowed with a judgment that says this isn't okay, even though my mouth is saying it's okay,
yeah,
and
yeah.
next time it's also okay, and next time it's also okay, and the resentment is building, and that's all growing inside. Guess what? When you invite the anger, all of that is going to go, hello,
Yeah.
we've been here all along. You've been playing nice, nice. You haven't been very authentic.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've been avoiding my anger my whole life, and that's not authentic at all, because and I'm probably guilty of spiritually bypassing the anger because I know it's just a representation of something. It's been this, I don't want to say stubborn refusal, but maybe there's a little stubborn refusal to just go ahead and feel the anger because I genuinely don't know what to do with it because I've never allowed it before. I mean, as a kid, you're not allowed to get angry. As a kid, you're not allowed to feel anything. As a teenager,
Well,
all my anger did is repel people. And as a young adult, the same thing. All my anger did is repel people. And I've just never established a healthy relationship with anger. So of course it's all built up and now it's a
exactly.
mountain.
When you're angry, you're not actually feeling angry. When you're angry, you're feeling afraid because you've taught yourself that anger is scary.
Yeah,
You've
I
taught
have.
yourself that it makes people reject you.
Yeah,
You've taught yourself it pushes people away. So anger is terrifying because I won't be lovable anymore. So
yeah.
when you're angry, you're not actually feeling your anger. You're not processing your anger. You're in fear.
Wow. I love our conversations. I really hope that people watching this are getting a boatload of aha moments with this because I think anger is that hot button. We all have moments of sadness. We all have moments of frustration. We all have moments of joy. We all, fear. But anger seems to be a different thing, maybe just for women. I don't know. But anger seems to be a different bird that a lot of us have a little bit of a stumble with. Like you said, when we get angry, we're rejected. When we get angry, we're not accepted. When we get angry, oh, see, here's another one for women. When we get angry, we're hysterical. And there's this whole hysteria thing that, when women got angry, they were just thrown in the loony bin. So we can't have that, right? So it's
Yeah.
interesting to me how the thoughts, the like we're talking about right now, the thoughts behind the emotions that we feel are quite fascinating. It's very, very interesting to me anyway.
Yes. And I mean, the thoughts that we've repetitively thought and been programmed with to where they now especially are a belief in terms of our self-concept, in terms of the beliefs that we hold about what we think about ourselves. And the fact that there's this internal driver that says, I must be nice. I
Yeah.
must be a good girl. And nice, good girls don't get mad. They don't throw their toys. They don't get rejected by anybody.
Yeah.
But there's no authenticity in that. I
Yeah.
can be lividly angry and still be kind. I can look Laura in her eyes and I can say, you know what, hun? Last week, Thursday, when you blah, 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 wow, that made me angry. And when I say that, I'm not hurting you at all, right?
Right.
Because I am just being authentically honest about my own feelings. I'm not projecting some kind of ugly at you. I'm not expecting you to be a perfect human being. I'm holding space for the fact that every now and then you'll hurt me or disappoint me or make me angry. And I
Right.
have to be able to trust our relationship enough to be able to be that authentic with you. You don't have to turn into the rage monster who says all sorts of awful things about now, I don't like your hair or something because I'm angry with you. That's equally inauthentic.
Yeah.
We get angry and we start flinging insults that we regret later because that's not actually what we're feeling. What we're feeling is let down or disappointed or hurt, and our biggest need is to share that. So learning how to share that in a way that doesn't harm you. There's no desire for spite or revenge. There's a genuine need to connect and to share that stays kind and stays respectful and can still honor the love.
Yeah.
To me, that makes all the difference. We need to stop
I
being nice.
yeah. Stop being nice and start being real without being retaliatory and like you said, spiteful and vengeful. It's just authentically
Yeah.
being honest with what we're feeling. However, what if someone does not feel safe to do that? How do we work through that within ourselves? One of the ways that I do it is I just journal it out. I just write it all out. But I imagine when people heard you say we need to have the safety and security in our relationship to have the difficult conversations. What if you don't have that?
Well, for me, I'm a Libra, so everything goes in my scales. So I would say, okay, here's the hurt or the anger or the disappointment that this person caused. And here's how much I value this person. What's more important? So if I don't feel safe enough to share that hurt with this person, is that hurt significant enough that I'm willing to lose the person?
Right.
Or do I value the person so much that I'll just deal with my own feelings?
Right.
And then I weigh that
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. And
The answer is going to be different depending on who the person is.
yeah, I agree. I think there are times when we can't necessarily go to our boss and say how we feel. We can't necessarily go to our coworkers and say how we feel. We can't go to our political leaders and say how we feel. So some of that really does have to boil back down to working through those emotions within ourselves, by ourselves, possibly with a therapist or just a pen and paper, and work through all of the feelings that you're feeling, even though you might not be able to go to that person, place, or thing with how you feel.
Exactly. And it's about giving ourselves the acceptance and the love and the care and the honesty that we wish we could get from other people, but 90% of the time we cannot or we don't. That's what it means to truly start loving ourselves enough to recognize that our emotions are thoughts and therefore under our control.
Yeah, and we don't have to be victims. We can be stewards, masters and commanders of our ships.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you for connecting with Light for Life. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you would like to work with one of us, you can find our contact information in the About section.
Please share your insights, your questions, and your comments with us. We value your feedback. And we really hope that we will see you for our next episode. We upload one every Thursday.
Until we connect again, we send you love and light.